treatment to a fabric where I need to make that particular fabric more absorbent, so that whenever water, either you can make it water resistant, so whenever the water falls, it will just resist, it won't absorb the water, it won't let it stay on the surface. But at the same time, we can make certain fabrics. For example, there are all these rayon and polyester, nylon. Rayon फिर भी थोड़ा absorbent होता है, but polyester and nylon are not at all absorbent. So if I need to make polyester or nylon more absorbent, then I'll give a kind of finishing which will retain the moisture content on that. So that will increase the absorbent property of that particular fabric, and that's called absorbent finish. Same way, you have durable place, flame retardant, which will retard the flame, so the fabric won't catch fire. Water repellent or waterproof finishes. Repellent is something that is it kind of seals the top layer of the fabric, so water does not pass through it. That's your waterproof. So basically, whenever water falls on something, it will just fall away. It will just go away from there. But water repellent is something where the fabric resists wetting while retaining a porous character. So basically, the permeability thing is there. So you all must be knowing porous. That is where they are very fine, holes present on the surface of the fabric, or जो मिट्टी के मटके होते हैं, we call them porous, and that is the reason that those pots, earthen pots, they keep the water so cool in summers, because of the porous nature, because they absorb the water moisture content, they retain it, and at the same time it helps in making the water more cool. So that the same thing happens here. So water repellent mein what happens, the surface is porous, so it does help in the breathability. It will absorb the moisture, but the water won't come inside. But waterproof mein what happens, it won't even pass through the surface also. Same way, we have stain or soil resistant finishes, shrink resistant finishes, lots of soil resistant, ultraviolet, moth proof, anti-static finishes, anti-slip, antimicrobial. All these different types of finishes are there. Read it on your own, not very difficult, I would say. The next unit is about dyeing of fabrics. Now, very easy, this unit also. What happens is, whenever a fabric comes out of the industry, it is in a very raw form. Okay? So first of all, that fabric is bleached to remove the unnecessary dirt and dust that it must have absorbed. It generally 99% it does absorb, and then it becomes white. When you bleach anything, it becomes white. So now everyone doesn't wear white clothing, so you have to dye it into, you have to color it into various colors. So that coloring part is called dyeing. So preparation for the fabric for dyeing and printing, what you have to do is cotton, hair. If you have the fiber cotton, then the process of removing dirt is called singeing or desizing, scouring, bleaching. These are the things that steps that takes place. For silk, you have, first of all, you remove the sericin, so that's called degumming, and then you bleach it, so that the absorbance of the dye is much better. When it's wool, it will be scouring and then bleaching. Synthetics mein only scouring is required. So lots of different steps are there that differs on the basis of the fiber that you are using. Now, dyes and pigments, anything that is any color that is used to kind of impart a new color to fabric or textile is called a dye or a pigment. Now, there is difference between dyes and pigments. The major difference between dyes and pigments is dyes are generally more liquid. The consistency of dye is very patla, very thin. So what happens is, it penetrates inside the fibers, and it gives the whole fabric a new color. With pigments, what happens is, pigments are generally used for printing, not for dyeing. So pigments are generally thicker in color. They have a gummy substance in those dyes, and then they are only used for top application of that particular print or design or whatever you need. So dyes are generally used for dyeing, and pigments are generally used for printing. So application of dyes, different ways. There are different theory of dyeing. Read it on your own. The dye molecule at anionic hota hai, cationic, dispersed colors. All these are things are there. Role of water, of course, it's required to dye anything. Role of electrolytes, heat application. Whenever you heat something, the dyeability becomes better, so it increases. So you dye something in cold water, it will bleed color, but you dye something in heat hot water, the bleeding, the color bleeding reduces. Also, when you apply, there's a word called mordant. Auxiliaries hai, mordant bhi hota hai. Mordant is something that helps in retaining that particular dye to the to that particular fabric. So mordant, using of mordant increases the dyeability property of any dye on that particular fabric. Now there are dyeing auxiliaries. Auxiliaries play a very important vital role in the process of dyeing, and as it is very important to understand their role. So they are the auxiliaries used in dyeing process are discussed. There are lots of auxiliaries. पहला है जैसे कि leveling agents होते हैं. They are added to produce uniform color on the fabric, on any fabric when they are dyed. So what happens is, whenever you dye, you take a small handkerchief or maybe just half or 1 meter of white fabric, and you put it into water and mix haldi in it. So because haldi is a natural dye, natural color. See, dye also relates to something that is chemical, and when we use the word natural, then we have to use the word color. So natural colors are there, but dye is something that is originates from something that is chemical. So leveling agents होते हैं, which makes it more uniform. Dispersing agents or the solvent that makes it prevents the aggregation of dye stuff molecules. So many a times you must have observed, you put something in water and it becomes lumps. So dispersing agents, they actually prevent that. Then there are wetting agents, anti-foaming agents, curriers or swelling agents. All these things are there. Scouring after dyeing. Scouring is something that whenever we dye something, what happens is some little molecules of the dyes, they remain on the surface. So to improve that, to kind of remove that, we do scouring after the dyeing process. So that's one step. And then there are classification of dyes. Dyes are classified into lots of different ways: acid, azoic, basic, direct, dispersed, mordant. All these things are there. There are many dyes which are banned also. Now, what is acid dye? What is the use? Which fiber, on which fiber can you use acid dye? All these things are there. So for example, acid dye, it can be used on natural protein fibers like silk or wool, and man-made synthetic and nylon. So acid dyes cannot be used for cellulosic fibers. Same way, direct dyes cannot be used for protein fibers. They are only for cellulosic and man-made fibers. So similarly, you have to remember all these things, which dyes where you can use and why. Of course, it's written there, the reason why you can't use it on a on a particular fiber. So all these different dyes are there. Then stages of dyeing, of course. So there are various stages. You can do fiber whenever the fiber, when you dye fibers, it's called stalk dyeing. When you dye at the sliver stage, sliver क्या होता है? Sliver is something, a collection of fibers. So last class में I had shown you a picture that cotton, cotton fibers are there in a very pod form. You just remove it and it's like a huge bunch circle. So that is your fiber stage. When you further stretch it and make it into a big long lump of fibers, that becomes the sliver. Dope dyeing is something that is done for man-made fiber at spinning stage. So as we had already talked about synthetic fibers, that via spinneret, the liquid, the jelly kind of substance, it comes out, and the moment it comes out with the use of maybe hot water or hot air or maybe certain chemical, caustic soda, whatever is different chemicals, different conditions are there, varying on the chemicals that are there in the raw material. So here dope dyeing is done at the spinning stage. Yarn dyeing, of course, the name itself suggests yarn stage pe hoga. Piece dyeing is something that is done at fabric stage, because fabric, whenever it comes out, it's into some meters, maybe 100 meters, 1000 meters, 500 meters, something. So it's a huge piece of fabric. So we call it as piece dyeing because it done at the fabric stage. Product dyeing, that is, now I many a times it must have happened with all of us, I'm sure, that we are wearing a jeans, maybe a blue or black or whatever, and after a few years we feel that it has faded. So what we do is we just give it to the dyer key, you just what to say, you just dye it into maybe a darker shade of blue, or maybe some black color, or so any other color. Maybe if it's a white color jeans and it has stained somehow, then we just put maybe red or yellow or some other color. So whenever there is a product, a commodity, and then we are using that apparel or clothing to get it dyed, it's called product dyeing. So read it on your own, all these things at different stages, how it's done. Beam dyeing, it's very easy. Space dyeing, piece dyeing, okay. All these different dyeing techniques are there. Spatial dyeing, cross dyeing, tone effects. Okay. Now coming to color fastness or dyed fabric. Color fastness is something कि color कितना पक्का है. That means that how much color is it going to retain after the dyeing of that particular fabric. So color fastness, the test of color fastness can be done in various ways. The most easiest and most common way is washing, by washing. So in washing, what happens is you buy a new garment and you wash it. Just wash it simply. Put it in a bucket of water. Put some kind of liquid or powder detergent and leave it for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then you wash. Many a times you will observe, especially this happens with new clothing. If we buy it from bahar ke markets, at times it does happen with your branded products also, but it's rare there. So the amount of color that comes out, it's inversely proportional to the color fastness. So color fastness, the better the color fastness, the less the bleeding will be. And if the color fastness is poor, if it's bad, then the more the color will bleed. So that's the easiest way to test that is by washing. Then you have clocking, perspiration. Clocking is something that you what happens is you take a surface area of a particular fabric and you rub it with something. So there are clocking machines that are available in textile testing. This is laundrometer. Again, as I said, washing. So this is laundrometer that is used in the textile testing laboratories. Fastest to clocking. So this is how the clock meter looks. It's called clock meter. So here what happens is you place a fabric here at this part, and this particular, there is a very small metal rod kind of thing, smooth rod. And once you start this clockometer, what happens is this will start rubbing on the fabric. So you do it for a few minutes and then you see. So if the color fades from that particular place, that means the fabric is not very good to towards fastness, color fastness. Similarly, you can test for perspiration. Either you test it in the laboratory, or we all wear clothes, we all sweat, perspire. So you get to see. Sometimes color will bleed on your hands also, or at your armpits, or the color will fade at the armpit area of your garment. So you can test for perspiration. One can test for light as well. As I had mentioned, one of the things in last classes, that sunlight is the most common bleaching agent that is naturally available. So you put a fabric into the sun and you will see, maybe if it fades after some time, then of course the color fastness is not very good. Again, there are instruments that are available in textile testing laboratories which does that. Dyeing defects, of course, there are various dyeing defects, lots of them. I'll just talk about one. One is called bar in fabrics. Bar is something that the name is BARR, but bar, like a line. So what happens is, because the fabric might fold at a place, or it might crinkle or something, so maybe one single line may not get the same color as the rest of the fabric. So this is called a bar. Or bleeding, clocking, off shade, all these things are there. Or this is color patching. So this is called patches, color tender spots, patches. So what happens is, because the dye powder, it is not mixed properly in the water, so maybe very fine, minute, some small lump of dye stays at a place on the fabric, and when it's dried, you can see color patches there. So all these are dyeing defects. Computer shade matching and computer control dyeing. Now we do dye manually, all that I have talked about till now, but of course it is done mechanically, as well as computerized also. So you just put the fabric and feed the the color, the shade, exact shade, the amount, the whether it should be dark or light or whatever you need, and the computer will dye accordingly. Now प्रिंटिंग ऑफ फैब्रिक्स, एज आई सेड, डाइंग में डाइज यूज होते हैं, प्रिंटिंग में पिगमेंट्स यूज होते हैं. सो प्रिंटिंग इज समथिंग दैट हैपेंस when a particular color is put on top surface of the fabric. It doesn't penetrate inside the fibers, it remains on the surface of that particular any fabric, any given garment or textile or anything, and it gives a design pattern. So that's your printing. What happens, printing may be auxiliaries ki zarurat hai. You need water, you need auxiliary, you need mordant, everything you need in dyeing as well as printing as well. So you need water, wetting agents, anti-foaming, and all the agents that were there in dyeing, you need it here also, barring one, that is your thickener. Now, as I said earlier, that these things are, pigments are, their consistency is thick, the viscosity is high here. So what happens is you add a thickener to the pigment. For example, मैं बहुत ही simple सा आप जो imagine कर सको, मैं ऐसा कुछ बताती हूँ आपको. You take a bowl, you put maybe 2 spoons of haldi in that, okay, and you take 1 bucket of water, maybe 15 or 20 liters, and you put those 2 spoons of haldi into that bucket, mix it properly, and you dye it. It will give a different effect. The same thing, you take 2 spoons of haldi, you put some kind of thickener in it. That is, you take Fevicol. Simple Fevicol is the best thickener if you want to do something at home. So take Fevicol, mix it in the this thing, your haldi, and a little amount of water to maintain that consistency that you need. And then you take maybe a half cut onion, or maybe bubble wrap, or something small piece, anything, pencil, pen, something that will give it print or design. You dip it in, or maybe those wooden blocks that are available in market. Take a block, take something, and then dip it into that thickener and that pigment, and then put it on a white fabric, or maybe your handkerchief or anything. You'll see the difference. So यहाँ पे पूरा fabric will get colored. Here only that top part, you after it gets dried, you turn around the fabric and you will see that it doesn't come on the back, because it doesn't penetrate into the fiber. So there are various types of thickness. Natural gums are there, gum arabic, lots of them. Man-made thickness, like I said, Fevicol is also a man-made thickener. Man-made synthetic compounds, of course, polymethyl alcohol, all these things are there. Emulsion thickness are there. So different types of thickness that are used for printing a fabric. Then there's dry heating. This is done in case of thermoplastic fibers, which are hydrophobic. So what happens is, many fabrics are there which are hydrophobic. That is, it repels water, basically it doesn't absorb. So उसके वजह से क्या होता है कि the fiber doesn't swell, and until the fiber will swell, the color won't get absorbed in that. So for that kind of printing, probably dry heating is used. So here the water is not used. It's just that you take the pigment, you heat it to a certain temperature, you mix all the thickness and whatever auxiliaries you need, and then you put it on the print it on the fabric. Styles of printing, lots of different styles are there. Even if you don't go through this SLM, I'm sure you all must be knowing about various types of printing. Like, for example, there is block printing, there is batik, then there is stencil printing, foil printing, all your t-shirts that comes with that metallic gold and silver kind of print, that's foil print. Then lots of different types of printing techniques are there. These are the types of printing. Mainly they are divided into 4 styles: direct style, discharge style. Now batik comes under your discharge style. Direct जो block है वो आपका direct printing में आएगा, style of printing में. I'll just tell you what it is. Resist, again batik will come into resist also, and then dyed style of printing. So direct printing में क्या होता है, as I just gave you the example of haldi and fevicol and all that, you put something and you print it on the top of the fabric. That's your direct style of printing. Discharge में the fabric is already colored, okay, but you put a print and you this resilient word is written, so you put a chemical on this alphabet, on these alphabets, on this word, and what happens is that particular chemical will actually remove the color from there. It will discharge the color. So the whole fabric remains the actual dye color that it was dyed into, and only that particular part will, the color will get discharged from there. So that's your discharge printing. Resistile, as I said, that's something you are resisting. So what happens in batik is that you apply wax, melted wax, on top of the design, and then you put that fabric into the dye. So the rest of the fabric, it absorbs color, and or maybe tie and dye also. You tie the fabric, so you are resisting that particular place where the fabric is dyed in using the help of threads. So and then you dye the fabric. When you open it, although wax को आप hot water में डालेंगे तो that the wax will melt and it will come out. So that's your resist style of printing. And then the last one is your dyed style of printing. That is using a mordant. So any printing technique that you do using the with the help of the mordant. Now block printing, you already know there's a wooden block and it is printed into various colors. Roller printing with the help of rollers. Now these rollers have embossed designs into this, and these designs are fed with different kinds of colors. And then when the fabric is passed from here, white fabric, first of all first roller में जाएगा, so green color होगा, and then you see it is alternate. So green color will come out, but then बीच का जो white part है, the orange color will come. Then you want to put a yellow print on something, so this roller will have printed kind of embossed design on it, and then it will put like this. So this is how roller printing is done. Screen printing, we all know there's a screen, a very fine porous kind of surface screen, and the pigment is put on that, and then it is rubbed from one side to another, and the design is being printed. So this is what I'm saying. The white fabric is here. These are called screens. And then there is a squeezy. That is a small wiper kind of thing. You squeeze from here to here, and the screen has very fine pores, which makes the design actually. And then when you pass it, these designs will print on the fabric. So we have different types of printing. Please go through on your stencil printing. We all must have done. In fact, I'm sure we all must have done as kids. Stencil printing. Batik, as I said, so this wax in molted form is put on the top of the design. It is dyed, and then the wax is removed, so the design remains in white color, whatever the base color is, and the rest of the fabric gets dyed. Then tie and dye, again tying, and then it comes out like this. There are many other printing techniques, methods, apart from what we have talked, transfer printing or sublimation, where you transfer something. So this happens with your lots of coffee mugs and frames, and even on cakes also. So there's a photo and you transfer with the help of light. The photo is being transferred on something. So it can be with your fabric also. That's called your sublimation or transfer printing. Photo printing is there, digital printing is there, foil printing, as I said, all these silver, इसमें golden color में जो भी that duplex printing, all these things are there. Just go through on your own this one. And then the next unit is about your environmental issues in textile industry. So as I mentioned in last class, that textile industry is considered to be one of the, I think it's on the second number, one of the biggest polluters in the world. And, there's a lot of negative impact on the environment because of these textile industries. So air pollution hota hai, lots of oils and acid mist, it comes out in the environment, in the air. Solvent mist hote hai, vapor ke form mein aata hai. Pungent smell. Many times you must be traveling via bus or train or something, and you get that bad pungent smell for maybe a minute or so, and it comes from the textile industries actually. Dust and lint, biggest reason for all these textile laborers to die actually. This is the reason, because they hardly use any protective covering for them. They never use any mask or nothing. The industry doesn't provide them. Many times, even if the industry is providing them, they don't use it because it makes them uncomfortable uncomfortable. So dust and lint, and they continuously breathe for maybe 10 hours, 12 hours. So that's one of the reasons of people dying actually. Very important reason of people dying is your dust and lint. Water pollution hota hai, all the chemicals, all the dye bath, all the using of oxidizing agents, everything, it comes out into water. And where does that water go? Probably into Ganga or Yamuna or whatever rivers we have. So a lot of water pollution happens. Solid waste pollution hota hai. All, we talk about fast fashion and slow fashion. Last class I mentioned these two words, and I said ki although H&M is saying ki nahi, we are making sustainable clothing and we are making eco-friendly clothing, but the amount of, you see this, there's a data on internet, case study about H&M and these Zara and all those brands. I think it was for Zara or H&M something, I'm not yet sure about it, but they mentioned that the number of garments that these brands they sell actually, it is less than what they discard. So where does this discarded thing goes? It goes into huge landfills. You see these textile landfills and you'll see mountains of clothes, and they are not old or torn clothes, they are new clothes that doesn't sell over years, and they just dump it into the landfills. So solid waste pollution बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. Of course noise pollution, lots of machineries are being used, noise pollution होना ही है. At different levels, dying से क्या होता है, कौन सा chemical निकलता है, क्या source है, क्या pollutants है, please read it on your own. Then classification of textile waste. There are different types of textile waste depending on how much we can treat them. Actually hard to treat waste. There are certain waste that cannot be treated. So if we have heavy metals, if we have colors, or we have phenols, तो these textile waste, they cannot be treated at all and recycle नहीं हो सकता है. Hazardous or toxic waste, you talk about radioactive material, those are totally non-biodegradable. And then of course that doesn't count at the textile industry, but I just gave an example. Then again there are metals, chlorinated solvents, etc., which are very toxic. They are so toxic that if there's a pond or a lake nearby, it will just all the marine aquatic animals, they will die actually. So they are literally too much hazardous and toxic. Dispersible waste, those waste which results from continuous operations such as print waste and unused chemicals. So they're just dispersible into the environment. It can be through air or water or anything. So but it comes through a continuous process. You have high volume waste, main solid waste, all these different types of waste. The most common is actually main solid waste. Then pollution prevention and control. Lots of the government, so to say, I would say, because who knows what's going on, but the government is actually, they say that they are working into solving these issues. So Ganga bachao, Ganga ko clean karo. We have heard this a lot, but since my relatives are from Banaras, I make it a point to go to Banaras a lot of times, and I don't see Ganga getting cleaner basically. So ठीक है, there are lots of ways in which this can be done. So one of them is cleaner production technique and process. So instead of using certain chemicals which are banned, or it's better not to use them. End of pipe treatment is something that the water that comes out at the end with all these chemicals and sludge and lots of pollutants, it can be cleaned, it can be recycled. Now that recycled water can be used for many things. They can be used for for toilet purposes at home, they can be used for irrigation purposes, or to put water into plants or something. So that way. So into pipe treatment, protective clothing for workers, of course, as I said, even sometimes many of the industries, they don't provide, and sometimes it also happens that industries do provide, the workers they don't use because they say it makes them uncomfortable. Then the recycling of textiles, how it can be done? It can be done at three major stages. Pre-consumer textile waste, as I said, last time I had said this, that let's try to buy less. Now, pre-consumer, before that reaches the consumer, and then of course there are other things. Post-consumer, once you have something is spoiled, your fabric is torn, your garment is torn, try not to throw it. Give it to someone who can use it. And it's if it's completely torn, I think we as Indians are the biggest recycle people in this world, because एक टी शर्ट या एक बेडशीट, दुपट्टा या साड़ी, एनीथिंग वो खराब होता है, फिर उससे हम डस्टिंग करते हैं, फिर वो पोछा बनता है, फिर वो कुछ और बनता है. So I think we Indians are literally very good at that. So post consumer waste is also very important. Industrial textile waste, it is usually the dirty waste. It is very difficult to recycle it, but to a certain extent we can. Sustainable fashion. So I am using the word slow and fast fashion, sustainability, it's all about sustainability. How sustainable are we making the environment? We as individuals, all of you and me, we think yaar hum to 50 saal baad mar hi jana hai, hame who cares, I mean, about the environment, about the place, whether we have water or not, whether we have clean air to breathe or not. But what about your kids? Either they are here or they will be born someday. So it's being sustainable is not only about thinking about yourself, it's about thinking maybe 2 to 3 generations after. And when you think big, when you think long, you will think big. So these things are there under sustainability. We have eco balancing approaches. How can we balance the environment? Ethical and fair trading. See, all those people who work, they have to be paid properly. They have to be, if someone is throwing urea in the spreading urea in the paddy fields, they have to have those protective kind of clothing. So sustainability doesn't only mean buying less, it means a lot, much more than that. We have fair trade fabrics, Soho production facilities there. This is a case study actually in Kenya. Please go through it. It's very interesting. And यहाँ पे तो बहुत short में दिया हुआ है. Read it on the net. You will get to know about it. GOTS Global Organization Textile Standard. It actually either it patents something or it gives a certification whether a particular fabric is environmental friendly or not. In my PhD, I had my to a certain 20-30% of my PhD research was about organic clothing. So I had sent my samples to GOTS. It's not in India. So, and they checked it and got it back. So out of 12 samples that I had sent, 11 came out to be 100% organic, and one there was some issue with that use of chemical or something. So GOTS is something that is working a lot on sustainability. Sustainability is one topic, guys, that it's very huge, and the more you read about it, the more information you will gain, and it's very interesting. So I am just completing it, in a very hurried kind of way, but I would tell all of you to go back and read about sustainability and apparel industry and the relation between them. Then the next unit is about apparel line developments. We are coming out of the production part, and then we are coming to the garment production now. So apparel line, as I said, whenever a person, a designer, a collection comes out, it's always a line development. That is, there are a number of products, a number of garments or apparels that is being kind of made into that. So that's your line development. Line development depends on many things. One is seasons. According to the season, we have to make the collection. Product development, developing how to develop a product. The role of the designer, very important. Researching colors and fabrics. The designer who researches the colors and fabrics, forecast is predict karta hai. Creating styles, of course, again, developing a line, and then making a garment, basically. So appraisal of lines, role of a merchandiser comes after the role of the designer. So merchandiser takes care of the further descending of the making the garment, production, online treatment, whatever you need, the quality check, sales, and everything. Then the components of design, lots of components of design, and these things you already know. There's nothing to explain. Color, we all know color. One of the most important element of design. Color naming, how does one? So I say last time that something is of algae green color. There is no as such color called algae green. The color is green, but we name it algae green because we need to know which shade of green it is. So all these things are done by the designer. Color selection, color relationship with a garment, illusion created by the color. If it's a darker color, one might get that illusion that a person is looking a little sleek or thin. If it's a very bold white color, we tend to look maybe brighter and a little very little, but a little chubby, I would say. Then what is the relation of color and fabric? Then about fabric. These things are very simple. I think you all can read it on your own. Nothing much to explain. Color wheel we have already talked about, primary, secondary, tertiary colors. Then developing a sample garment. Whenever one has to make a sample garment, the first step is your sketching. Um, so what the designer or the people working under designer, they do is they make the sketches of different types of fabrics, sorry, garments. The first pattern is made, and this pattern is converted into a sample garment. So based on that pattern, a sample garment is made. That sample garment is further approved, and then a designer worksheet is made which gives all the details about the garment. So for example, this is the garment that you designed. Then the body of that garment is print is there. Then you have to write the size, range, fiber content. Floral print design is the name of this particular garment. You just named it as style 1025. Price would be approximately 48. It's dollars here, but of course you'll be putting it into Indian. And then all the designs, zipper है या नहीं, belt loops है, threads हैं, क्या क्या चीजें outside में क्या है, inside में क्या है, everything. So all these things combined together, and then you will get the final cost of that. Style board, as I had explained earlier, there's a color board, there's a mood board, there's a concept board. The same way there's a style board. The moment you see that board, you'll get what style of the garment that one is making. Line selection, how do you select the collection that you're going to make. Costing of a garment, how is it done? Pre-cost of the raw materials is there. Final costing for calculating the design department, your worksheet, the worksheet that I've showed you, and then it's a lot of things I include. For fabric, of course, pre-costing, trimmings, cutting, labor, overhead, sales commission, manufacturer's profit, everything is included, and then the final costing is done. Cost sheet will include all these things: materials, trimmings, labor, production charges, pattern making, grading, marking, all these things, cutting, construction, everything, and then the final output of the this thing will be done, costing. Wholesale pricing is done in a different way, because if something is made into wholesale, of course the price comes a little lower, on the lower side of that particular garment. Then fashion trimmings. Trimmings are something that are used to enhance that particular garment, to enhance the functionality and aesthetic. So for example, trimmings में मैंने एक zip use कर दिया on the back of my top. Now it doesn't necessarily have to have a function. Already the diameter of the this thing neck hole is as much that I can put my head inside, but just to increase the aesthetic appeal, I put a zip. Now many a times the neck hole is very small, so the same zip will act as the functional give a functional property to that particular garment. So basically ये दो reasons की वजह से हम trimmings add कर सकते हैं, either for aesthetic or functionality. There are various types of trimmings. Soft trims होते हैं like lace, braids, ribbons, all these. Laces of course comes under that. There are different types of laces. All these different types of laces are there. Then ribbons, of course we can use different types of ribbons. Hard trimmings होते हैं जैसे कि which are very hard. Generally though these are metallic ones. So buttons, plastic, wood, all these things, zippers, buckles, snaps, all these. So these are hard trims. Belt buckles, as I said, all these things are there. Different types of trims, buttons and types of buttons are there. Just go through them. Buttonholes and then zippers, and different types of zippers are there. Invisible, visible, zippers, hook and eye are there. These are all trimmings, all the things. Hook and eye is actually buttons, and hook and eyes, they come under the category of fasteners as well, because they fasten something. Two things को जोड़ते हैं, fasten करते हैं. But of course, it's a part of trimming again. Fabric and stitchery trims, that is, you put ruffles, you put pleats, so these are ruffles. You put bows, again, it's a kind of trimmings. Applique and patches, you put some kind of patch on that. Using threads, you do some embroidery, elastics, velcros, all these pleats I just mentioned. Tucks are there. Pockets add karna. All these things are part of the trimmings. Now classification of trimmings, different types of trimmings. Linear, there are certain things that goes in a very linear way. Then embroidery is there, of course, beading, all these things. Criteria for trim selection based on the type of the fabric, the costing. Trimmers enhance, what kind of enhancement, aesthetic look that you want to give. Costing, I just mentioned. Process of trimming should not be too long because it delays the production. Of course, the color and size पे depend करता है, care properties पे depending on the fabric. So that's about your trimmings, and then product development, the final stage. So the raw material is done, dyeing, printing is done, trimmings are decided, sab kuch, and then you produce that particular fabric. So what happens is product development mein, either you do it on the basis of creative design or technical design. And now whenever a merchandiser, actually the role of the merchandiser, as I have mentioned it many times earlier, that it starts right from the selection of the design and everything, taking the order from the buyer, everything, and then giving the final product. But the role increases at the production stage, because the whole production flow has to be taken care of by the merchandiser. So garment analysis and specification development करना होता है merchandiser को, जिसमें कि examination होता है, product development जो हुए होते हैं, it should satisfy the target groups, and then styling and everything is there, assessment of alternative product development, production and everything. For example, two of the sewers are not coming, so the production cannot stop, so the merchandiser has to take care, think of an alternative option of that. For that, quality standards, methods of garment analysis, different ways in which the quality check is done, visually देख के किया जाता है, augmented visual inspection by using some kind of instrument at the laboratory analysis, also one can do. All these things are there. As I had just talked about textile testing, so that's a part of laboratory analysis. Process of garment analysis and specifications development, lots of things are there: style design, sizing and fit, materials, components, style prescriptions, all these things. Very easy actually. Then creative design, what is there in the creative design? So what happens in creative design is that the creative design process centers on, there should be a gap here, a group of garments or collections that have visual common elements such as color, trims, everything. So creative design is mostly related to the aesthetic part. So you need a cuff, you need a collar, you need a pocket or something. So creative designers are hired for that, or maybe the same designer can be both actually. So that person can look about कि maybe एक ruffle वाला polo collar add करेंगे तो the aesthetic appeal will increase, or things like that. Selecting fabrics and garment finishes, we have already talked about it. You have a plain fabric and then you probably think of putting a flower block on that, so you'll feel this thing looks much better, so let's go for it. So all these things, what is that? Establishing garment fit. Of course, garment fit is very important. So that's the reason, because of this garment fit, there are lots of sizes that are available in market. So those are standard size. So S hoga, to the height will be similar to all the S of that brand. S matlab small, and then the medium, large, XL, and similar way. So the fit, and this thing is done specially for the fitting of the garments. Comfort, ease, primarily three types. So then styling, design, and then layered ease. We have already talked about the easing part in, I think, 2-3 days back only. So okay, that's about it. Line adoption, technical analysis, not very important, I would say. Use of technology in apparel design. So we have all these see earlier what happened, what used to happen, still it happens with small industries, I would say, that people used to make the patterns by hand using those brown sheets. Nowadays everything is computerized, so you just put the measurements of the fit, the design, the whatever print, anything that you needed, feed it into the computer, and the printer will print the pattern depending on the information that you have fed there. So everything is computerized nowadays. So use of technology in making a garment or fit or anything new design is very important, and not only for the production, I would say, even for designing also. Earlier we used to, I remember as when I was doing my bachelor's, we used to hand sketch a design. When I went to Baroda for my master's, I remember learning Corel Draw and Photoshop, and then we used to do it on the computer. So technology, of course, it helps all these processes a lot. Organization of a line, organization matlab everything is done, the line production, everything is happening, but it has to be assorted. It has to be kind of put into proper place. So that's your organizational part. There are different type. What is this? Development of new styles. Looks for the product achieved through one of these methods. Okay, original designs. How do you achieve a style basically? So depending on these three. Line composition. Line composition. We already know that it's a big collection of a particular design, and then one further works on that. Organizing the line depending on a single item or as a group we can do. So item line development matlab one piece at a time will be constructed, and then the second one is your as a group matlab there will be hundreds of pieces of this thing sleeves, 100 pieces of maybe borders, 100 pieces of something, and then it will be collectively at the end it will be stitched together. Planning the color story, again the way we have talked about different boards, color story is part of that, which color has to be there in that particular collection of the line collection. Parameters of line development, it depends on pricing, of course it depends on pricing, fashion level, what kind of people, customers we are targeting. So what is the fashion level, either it's very high or low or the medium class, whatever it is. Pyramid to depict assortment planning, so basic merchandise hai, key items for the season and the fashion items. So it always, it is the broadest when it comes to basic merchandise. Timing consideration, of course, important here, because you just can't go on for 1 year making one single garment. Then you have balancing the line. Balancing are done into three factors: assortment variety, assortment volume, assortment distribution. Variety is something that is made up of style, size, and color. So all these things make variety, matlab different types. So whatever variety you need, different types of garments or colors. Then the volume is particularly the style or size or the silhouette or the color. So as I said, there's a direct relation between color and size. There is a direct relation between silhouette and the look of the garment. Also, there is a direct relation between style. So you put on an umbrella skirt probably, and you will look a little heavier. The same person, while aside the same person, if he or she wears a fish cut tail design, they will look slimmer. So style, sizes, and all, assortment, volume, depending on the volume of that garment, it has to be assorted. And then the distribution part, depending on the distribution, where it's going, is it going to smaller towns or big, or is it going to Paris Fashion Week or wherever it is going. Now, communicating design concepts. How do you communicate the design? So I'm not saying it has to be communicated when it comes to, one has to talk about it. It can be communicated very well in a way that you just design something, and you get an idea, a look of what that garment is saying. So a block print, if there is a sari or block print, it says probably that it's something very traditional and comes from maybe Gujarat or Rajasthan. That is the idea that we get, the first feeling when we see that garment. Probably a very plain linen sari would give us something a very, what to say, decent and very formal kind of effect. So the way things are kind of portrayed, the similar way we perceive it. So these are the things about design collection, production, and all. And then there is just one more class left tomorrow, and we will complete, maybe there are 6 to 7 units still yet to be done, and we'll complete it tomorrow. If there are any questions for now, probably you can ask.
Madam.
Yeah.
Madam, good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, I was not there
No
to
problem
start
at
the
all.
meeting. We had some meeting, madam.
No problem, no problem. So anyone, any question, or we can end the class then?
Any questions, students?
Or if you remember anything later on, you can WhatsApp, no issues. Ma'am, is there any topic on different washes? You're talking about washing treatments, Abhishek? So then you will find it in the unit where we talked about dyeing and finishing. Yes, there are different ways in which one can wash a fabric, a garment. You can use alkali, you can use acidic solutions, but it depends on what kind of fabric you are using, depending on that. So if you're talking about that different washes, then yes, there is. Anything else? No. So we can end the meeting, ma'am, then for
Yes,
today.
ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
No
Tomorrow
problem.
we'll join same
Of
time.
course.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. Bye.